My name is Allan Pleus. I'm the Aquatic Invasive Species Coordinator for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and my job is to provide the monitoring, the early detection, prevention, rapid response for zebra quagga mussels in the state. The primary parts of the prevention are to deal with the direct intervention of watercraft that are being transported into the state from out of state. At this time, we don't have any zebra quagga mussels in our state, and we want to keep it that way, and we're going to do whatever we can to accomplish that. Part of that is we work very closely with our enforcement unit. Our enforcement unit goes out and does aquatic invasive species check stations. They also do random inspections, and they couple those with boater surveys and boater safety as well. And then we also do some spot checks with boater surveys, with some of our staff going out at boat launches, high-risk areas, and talking to people in more of a voluntary way of giving the information, letting them know what the risks are, how to clean, drain, dry their watercraft. Washington State is a partner in a regional effort, the Columbia River Basin team, which is really critical. It's important to have close coordination, communication, and cooperation with all these partners. That includes Idaho and Oregon and Montana, as well as British Columbia. But that doesn't stop there. We also work very closely with Utah and Wyoming and Nevada and Arizona and California, those other states. And we've created a very good network, which has been very helpful in identifying watercraft that are being transported before they get to our state, so we can set up a check station, or if it's commercially hauled, we'll notify our Washington State Patrol port of entry stations to be on the lookout for these. And we've caught many vessels in our state that have slipped through other states. But we've also had many of these vessels get stopped in other states, and Idaho is a really great example of their efforts to be able to stop a lot of these vessels before they get into our state. So that's critical to us in our prevention strategy, is working with these other states and supporting them in their efforts as well. We see it seems to be a fairly even threat from both the Great Lakes area as well as the lower Colorado River, Lake Mead, Havasu, and those areas. So we've had some from Texas, Lake Texoma, and we've had some from that area. It's a mishmash, and you just really don't know where the next one's coming from. They just found them in mid-north Nevada, so now we have to be careful of that. They're in California, all the way up near Sacramento, so we have to be careful of that. Basically, we don't try to think that it's everywhere now, and we have to protect every part of the border from every direction. And we're working with BC to see if anybody's coming from that location to this location, because they have them in the Great Lakes in Canada. So if somebody's coming overland from Canada then dropping down, we also have to be aware of that. It was back in 1998 that the legislature started taking notice of the zebra quagga mussels, as well as green crab at that time. The zebra quagga mussels seemed to be advancing towards the west. There was a big bicentennial, I believe, of Lewis and Clark that got people concerned that there was going to be an influx of boats and people from the Midwest into the West to celebrate that, and that would increase the threat. So the legislature passed some legislation at that point, and since then we've had increasing authorities. Different funds have come into play, primarily soft funds from federal agencies and such. In 2005, our state legislature did pass a new bill that required $2 off of every resident vessel registration goes to the aquatic invasive species prevention and enforcement accounts. And that provided a huge boost in our ability to make an effort and to make a difference in the prevention, the early detection, and the rapid response capacities that we have right now. We would like to improve that. I think every state would like to improve their abilities, and we want to be commensurate with the other states so that we're all working together and we have the same resources to be able to tackle these things at the same level. However, we're also looking at our different strengths. And so one of our strengths is working closely with our enforcement division and having the aquatic invasive species check stations and working closely with our Washington State Patrol in their port of entry. So we have some really key strengths in our state, and we want to be able to utilize those. The early detection monitoring has evolved over the time, and again, depending on the budgets and depending on interests and depending on what's going on in the region, we've been identifying high-risk lakes, rivers, water bodies, boat launches, those places, and we send out either employees of the department or we're working with local public utility districts, or we're working now with Bureau of Reclamation, Bonneville Power Administration, Northwest Power Planning Council, to get other people active. So we would supply equipment such as plankton nets or substrate samples and give them instructions on how to do that, so that we have highly qualified people being able to conduct these monitoring on more locations. So that's one of the things we're doing right now. As our budget is getting smaller, we are trying more to work with those other stakeholders out there and providing them the tools to collect the information, because we don't have the staff that can go out within the state, which is fairly large, with all the different water bodies and places, and do samples at each of those places. So that's been a really good cooperative effort that we've been working with. When I first started this work in 2006, I started working with the Columbia River Basin team, and we quickly understood how important it was to have a rapid response plan for the basin. Much of that work had already been done, and we all worked together to finalize that. It's an excellent working document. Many of the state governors have signed it, and it's really important for regional coordination cooperation. Within each state, and in particular my state, we still need to develop our in-state plan that has agreements between the different agencies to provide that rapid ability to deal with a situation, and people know where they are supposed to be and how they're supposed to help, and that they're going to be paid if something happens. Things like that, which could really derail any rapid response effort. In the meantime, our rapid response is we have equipment, we have people, and we're ready to roll at a moment's notice to do what we can, when we can, with whatever we have in hand. So we have portable hot water pressure washer units, self-contained mats, everything like that, working closely with the enforcement division. We have enforcement officers who can get there, start working with the public, making sure that vessels don't come in, don't go out, really working hard to make sure that we accomplish what we need to accomplish. So the basic information and the ability to accomplish this, we have that capacity, but once it starts getting into a larger realm, for example, we did a rapid response exercise up on Lake Roosevelt. It was actually at a location on the Spokane Reservation. So at that point, we have a different relationship with the location, because it's the Spokane tribe that has the responsibility and jurisdiction for that water. And when we come in and start providing technical assistance and help in how to deal with it. So it's not just us being the point of the spear and getting out there day one. There's a whole lot of people, stakeholders, issues that have to be talked about and dealt with before you can actually start action one. So we've been working hard to provide that information, and I think at this point most people recognize it's not something that we can really sit around and talk about. We have to get on the ground, and we have to do something as quick as possible. And I think that has been probably the biggest problem the hurdle, the challenge for other states and for anybody is to get past that hump of we have them, we're going to do something about it. Unfortunately, once you have them, people start thinking it's too late. I can't think that way. I won't think that way. I'm going to get in there and do everything I can, including having them actually pick. If they have to pick them out one by one, I'm going to have them pick them out one by one. I want them out of there, and until it's proven that you can't do anything more, I'm going to do my best, and that's my job. What I want to make sure is that people don't get so focused on zebra and quagga mussels that they forget about all the other aquatic invasive species out there that can be transported by the same methods, by boats, by trailers, but they can also be transported on fishing gear, they can be transported on your pets. We have Capitol Lake here, which has New Zealand mud snails, and it could have been brought in by boats, it could have been brought in by pets. So it's about a larger aspect of aquatic invasive species. Zebra and quagga mussels are the poster child, but there's other very bad actors of these invasive species out there. Let's think about the whole picture rather than just focus on one. It's an area where we haven't been able to put a lot of effort just because our resources are so limited. It's really one of the first areas that get cut. We used to have, the primary way we used to have boater education was boater education, boater surveys, conducting the 100th meridian boater surveys at boat launches. And 2 or 3 years ago, we were able to have 3 or 4 technicians during the summer boating season go out to these locations and set up stands basically. And as people came in, they would talk to them, they would show them what's going on with the boat, give them literature, provide that education outreach. As our budget has shrunk, that's one of the first things that has been cut, unfortunately. We're hoping that the work that we do with the aquatic invasive species check stations and other aspects provides education outreach, but it's an area that I would really like to see grow. And we're going to try to do that, but it's going to take extra funding.